gosh. Hi.
Hello. Just
Hi,
gonna oh my god, it's not detecting me. Someone else we have to host because my green screen isn't working very well. Like you can still see.
I think, you know what, you just use any normal background as long as it works.
Let's see.
Is my background inverted or is fine?
It's fine. Is mine inverted?
No, it's fine.
So, I think I can only blur it. That's the only way it works.
Yeah, then it's fine. It's okay. Yeah, you can start sharing screen.
Okay. I will do that now. Share screen. My screen is giving me issues right now. Okay.
Another thing, right, we should rename ourselves like whatever dash BAC to your class. I mean, but you have to allow me to rename us.
Okay. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, can.
Okay. Everything's clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we're ready.
Can you please allow me to rename
Joe, what we should put on our name and then
dash BAC
Wait, what?
Crypto Club?
Okay. Host. So co-host, right?
Yeah.
JC is already a co-host.
If you can share the music, would be good.
Oh wait. Is it not allowing audio?
I don't think you allowed audio.
Is it multiple participants?
There's a box that you have to tick at the bottom
Okay.
that says something allow sound sharing.
Share computer sound.
Yeah. Okay. Is the music on?
Give me a second. Okay. Hold on, my Spotify is lagging. Ah,
As they enter, you can apologize or delete your time. Just get started.
we'll just get started right away.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yep. And you have to change your screen. Okay, perfect.
Allow them in now?
Yeah, can.
Hi everyone, we'll be starting really shortly. So sorry for the delay. There were some technical issues, but the event will be starting real soon. All right. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our event, Beyond Advocates and Solicitors. I'm Zoe, and I'll be moderating the session today. We'll be discussing what exactly you can do with a law degree, as our options aren't just limited to being a lawyer or barrister. To aid in this discussion, we've invited 3 incredible guest speakers who parted from the common line of work pursued by those with a law degree. They'll be introducing us to the wide spectrum of careers out there and will aid us in dissecting it. Without further ado, I'll introduce our speakers. Our first speaker is Ms. Rimsha, who is a paralegal with a first-class honors degree graduate from the University of Hertfordshire and has a passion for human rights. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Rimsha.
Thank you, guys. I'm happy to be here. Can you guys hear me? Is everything okay?
Yeah, we
All
got.
right.
Our next speaker is Ms. Lian Cheng. In her second year of law school, Ms. Lian Cheng knew deep down that a legal career was not her true calling. She had a passion for soft skills, educations, and communication. She branched out into event management when MIDP offered her the opportunity to organize the United Asians Debating Championship in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms.
Really great to be here. Really excited for the talk.
And our last speaker, but not least, is Mr. Jonathan. Upon leaving law school, Mr. Jonathan decided to join LexisNexis, where he worked on various operational matters, such as testing for Lexis Analytic algorithm. Following that, he joined Bursa Malaysia's regulation division, where he assisted in the revamp of sustainability reporting requirements for listed companies and provided regulatory support for other internal projects. Currently, Mr. Jonathan is an in-house legal executive with a corporate advisory company. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Jonathan.
Yep, happy to be here and happy to share any insights that I've gained.
Brilliant. All right, before we start, we would like to take a group picture with all our participants to commemorate this event. So if everyone could turn on your cameras. How many cameras do we have? Okay, we'll just take a picture now. All right, 1, 2. One more. All right, brilliant. So thank you, everyone. With the introductions and photo session out of the way, we'll now proceed to the main highlight of the entire event. So these questions are open to all speakers. I'll introduce one. I'll ask the questions to you one by one, and you guys can take your time answering it. So the first question is, what are the most common jobs that law graduates apply for with a law degree, besides advocates and solicitors? Ms. Rumsha, could you answer that first?
All right. Hi, everyone. So I think the main thing that people do after they've gotten their law degree, I think they venture into legal fields because they feel that, I have a law degree, so I need to do law. So they do venture into maybe like being a legal clerk, a paralegal, because, without the practicing certificate, you can't do anything much more than that. But outside the legal field, I know a lot of people that ventured into other things as well, like working for the UN or, UNHCR, which specializes in refugees. And there are a lot of other things as well, like the firm that I worked at, Mean Corporate Consultants, they specialize in corporate secretarial work. So that is something that you can explore as well. It's like completely corporate, corporate secretarial work mostly is inclusive of keeping all the company's documents, checking if they're in line with the law, organizing board meetings with shareholders, directors, and taking minutes of those meetings, and just see whether the company is compliant with the Companies Act 2016. So that is something that you can choose to venture into. And I feel like with a law degree, you can do a lot of things. You can get into managemental roles as well, work at MNCs and a lot of different places. You just have to show the employer that you have those relevant skills. And I think from there, I mean, you can do anything, unless it's a degree where, unless it's a role where you have to be specialized in something like engineering or IT. Those are jobs that, you know, you'll have to have the relevant studies and qualifications. But other than that, I think you can really just try anywhere.
All right, thank you so much for that amazing insight. Miss Cheng Li, would you like to give that a shot as well?
Sure. So I think in my opinion, it tends to be like very 0 to 100. Like I think a lot of people when they lose passion in like law, for example, right? Like you don't want anything to do with the legal field. I think the knee-jerk reaction is to like delve into the like most basic requirements for the job, right? Which means that, you know, there are a lot of skills that a lot of individuals have but aren't used because they think that because now they want to pursue something that's not their degree, they are okay with like going into sectors that, you know, have nothing to do with it, but they undersell themselves. So I do want to point out though that I think when discussing common jobs that people tend to like want to apply to after their education, it tends to be where their strengths, passions, and connections lie. Because I think everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic background, have some form of connections and some form of strengths that tend to like push them into different places and spaces.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yan Cheng. And Mr. Jonathan, do you have anything to say about the same question?
Yeah, I guess the main thing I would say would be there's a very common tendency for law graduates either to go into what I consider as legal adjacent roles. So as I think Ms. Rimsha has said previously, would be an example would be corporate secretarial. Another example would be AML analyst with relation to financial institutions. It's very common. And then there are some that go into compliance and also in-house legal. These are very common and relatively considered usual, especially those that venture into legal practice. Sometimes they may consider this as a second career option when they want to seek a change. So for other options, it depends mainly on where either, like I think Yan Chen said previously, would be either your skills or your interests. Like I previously did some early journalism, I think during my law school career and everything. So I know some friends who have gone into marketing or journalism right after law school because they felt those were their niches. So that's a possibility. And other things would be either to go into government services or into statutory bodies like regulators. Like I've known some friends who went into MyCC, some who have gone into Bank Negara. There are a few law graduates in my previous employer at Bursa Malaysia. The Securities Commission accepts law graduates in there as well. And because in that case, it's also really common there as well, in addition to other professional qualifications such as accounting and finance. So law graduates being no exception, it's not a surprise to find them there as well.
Thank you so much for your insight on that. All right, for our second question, is it recommended to sit for the bar or CLP to get job opportunities for the law degree? Ms. Yan Cheng, could you enlighten us first?
For sure. So for context, I didn't take CLP, but I do think that the pursuit of CLP or the bar is something that is very dependent on what you want to do and where you want to go in life. But I do think that like one thing to highlight is about the bar and CLP is that it's unique in that it is a course that is meant to complement what you learned in the degree, right? I think for the most part, our law degrees are very theoretical. They're like, hey, here's how you apply the law. Here's what the law generally is. And the CLP and the bar, what they essentially do is they, you know, refine your theoretical knowledge into practical knowledge, basically, right? So if you are going to go into a legal adjacent field, I think knowing and learning what the bar and the CLP teaches you is something that's important. I think it's something that can be helpful potentially, but I think if you know you're not going to be in the legal field like me, right? I think there's no real point in doing it unless like you really just want to read the law more.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yanchi. Mr. Jonathan, do you have anything to say?
Okay, so I think I would say is unless you are 100% sure that you want to at least try practice, you should not take CLP. Because for me personally, and then take this from someone because I took the bar. So in CLP's knowledge is very focused on practice and practice in the Malaysian context. So unless you are certain and you want to at least try out legal practice, then fine, you can take the CLP. It's fine. If you want to try a legal adjacent career, let's say company secretarial, there are qualification exams for that as well, which is called MICSA. It will be like the company secretarial exam. If you want to take compliance papers, let's say for a financial institution, Bank Negara has qualification exams, Securities Commission has qualification exams for their industries. So there are specific qualifications based on the industry that you may or may not be interested in, which you can take. So coming from the perspective of someone who took the bar, I would say that the bar has taught me some skills in either in presentation, contracts drafting, as well as in advocacy in presenting myself. So there are uses on that. But the most applicable or transferable aspect of my bar experience was when you do the bar, there is usually an option for a top up where you top up your bar and then it gets converted into an LLM by way of a reflective portfolio or a dissertation. I did the dissertation, and whilst my seniors have told me that the dissertation is not really something that people look at, it turned out to be an exception for mine because I chose a topic that was quite developing and relevant. I wrote my dissertation on the struggles of regulating blockchains in the commercial sector, which is a very developing area. It's a very big thing now. And that has come up a few times, especially even in interviews or when dealing with blockchain technologies. When even in Bursa, when we were having blockchain, various projects, and then some of the regulations and aspects I had to go through, and some of my inputs were asked regarding it, and some of the research that I referred back to some of the stuff that I wrote. So it depends on what you want to do, and also like it can be leveraged on that if you do the bar. If you do the reflective portfolio, it's a bit like pro bono work. It's more practical, which is more useful if you're heading into practice line, especially on litigation side. But there isn't as much, I would say, outside the legal field knowledge, unless that's where you want to go. But all in all, you don't have to take CLP in the bar unless you are 100% sure that you want to at least give practice a shot, because there are many other options and many other exams you can do otherwise.
All right, thank you so much for that valuable insight, Mr. Jonathan. Ms. Rimsha, do you have anything to add?
In my personal opinion, I think, once you've done your law degree, you could just go a step further and do your bar and CLP. I think it's something really important to have in case you want to fall back into practicing or to have a legal career in Malaysia. Because honestly, without CLP or bar in Malaysia, in the legal field, you can't do anything unless be a paralegal or like a legal clerk. And usually these careers in Malaysia are like a stepping stone to practicing. It's not like the UK where there are like distinct careers for like paralegals. You can be a paralegal your whole life and you can grow within that opportunity, or like be a legal clerk or a solicitor or a barrister. But here in Malaysia, it's all combined in one. So a lot of firms, if you do want to practice law or venture into the legal field, it's really important to have the CLP or bar, because a lot of the lawyers want you to practice or, be a legal associate or a legal executive, in their company or their firm. So I think it's something important to have. And in case you want to practice in the future, you can always fall back on it. But again, my fellow peers said, it's not necessary if you do not want to venture into the legal field at all, and you're hell-bent, you're fully sure that you know what you're going to do in the future and you're not going to venture into the legal career, then, it's not compulsory.
All right, thank you so much. Your opinions were very, very informative to me, at the very least. Okay, so for the third question, what kind of job opportunities are there for law graduates who did not sit for the bar or CLP? Mr. Jonathan, would you like to take this first?
All right, sure. So I guess a little background here is I was very certain I didn't want to practice or at least practice long term since like year one, first day of LLB. So I spent years looking into this. There are many things you can do. Like I think as I mentioned before, some of my friends became journalists. Like one of them, right after she finished pupillage, she joined Free Malaysia Today. One of my friends went into a media agency and to help out with their marketing for their clients. One of my classmates from the bar went to become a PR person for various brands. Others, they set up their own businesses if you're feeling very entrepreneurial. And then there are things very similar to where some go into banks, where they go join management associate programs, it is essentially like what a pupillage is, but you are contracted with the bank. You're contracted with the bank, you may be rotated across various departments, you are given training, you are given the assurance that you'll be accepted. Some banks do that, some don't. And then you'll be paid like a regular employee, and you'll be given on-the-job training, and you'll be assessed. And then upon maybe 2 years, you'll be given the opportunity to stay with the bank according to your various departments. A lot of companies do that. One of my juniors from just went straight into Samsung Electronics. Some went into Huawei. Nestle does that. And then some of them went become IT project managers, where if you learn some various skills, you can take up qualifications such as Agile, Scrum, Six Sigma. These are project management authorities, where it is essentially to make sure everything goes according to schedule, according to cost, and everything is on time. So these are various things you can do. It all depends on what you feel you can do and what you feel you can contribute, because a lot of these is either based on personality, your interest, as well as based on your knowledge set. I feel particularly fortunate because I kept in touch with a lot of my friends from high school and college who were not law graduates. So they exposed me that there are a lot of options for legal graduates outside just in the regular practice field, even though it isn't even related to law to begin with. But they found a way by just leveraging their skills and interests in order to make a switch.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. All right, Ms. Rimsha, would you like to take on the question next?
Yeah, sure. So the question was the different careers that law graduates can. Sorry, can I have the question again?
Yes, basically, what other careers can law students go for if they choose not to go for the bar or the CLP, if they choose not to sit for it?
All right. So a lot of people with legal background do choose to do in-house work. You don't have to practice at all with that. So it's great. You have a work-life balance, and it's basically 9 to 5 work. That's what a lot of people choose to do. Other careers would be like you could become an educator, you could become a lecturer, a law lecturer. You could venture into corporate consultancy or consultancy in general, managemental roles, customer service, corporate secretarial work. So the possibilities are endless. You just have to have that passion, and you have to show, that you have those skills for that particular role. And I don't think that's hard to do. There's so many courses online, you can study up whatever role you want to take. So the possibilities are endless with a law degree. You don't have to just focus on law. You can do a lot.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rimsha. That was very educational. And finally, Ms. Yan Cheng, you have any insights?
Let's see. So without repeating the previous answers, because I think they basically covered the answer, but I think the bottom line is if you are a law graduate that doesn't want to pursue a degree in the legal field anymore, I think it's important to just be aware and understand that there are 80% of the job openings and vacancies that exist out there aren't tied to they don't have a requirement that allows you to have a specific technical degree, right? I think it was mentioned before that only very specific technical jobs require you to have a specific degree. And the great thing about a legal background and the skills that people assume come from having a legal background is that people are more willing to take a chance on you, because the legal background is really appreciated in a lot of sectors. So I guess the takeaway that I would like to push for this question is just to look into the entire sector of what you're looking for. Look at the job requirements, apply even if you don't have the 100% because maybe you're gonna interview better than your peers. So, just be open-minded, don't worry about it. Just go for it. There are always opportunities there. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So the last group question I will ask is a law degree really that flexible, or do you think employers need more than a law degree? If so, what skills would you recommend we develop? Ms. Rimshaw, you can take this first.
All right, so I think a law degree is enough, but employers do like seeing extra skills or extracurriculars, so it's good to be involved in debating, mooting, clubs, NGOs, anything that can show that you go above and beyond, and you have the relevant skills for all these things. So because participating in these things do develop skills, and you can kind of show off to the employers, I've done this, I've done that, I have skills in this and that. But during my time when I was studying, I was working part-time as well, so I didn't have the opportunity to venture into these things. So I guess a law degree is enough. It's just how you sell yourself. You need to show off the skills that you gain during your law degree, and I think that would be enough. That would be sufficient, but it's always good to have extracurriculars on your CV.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rimsha. Ms. Yan Cheng, would you like to take on the question next?
For sure. So I agree with everything Ms. Rimsha said. I think to add on, it's just that so I went to this conference recently. It was like organized by the Human Resource Development Corporation, right? So they talked a lot about micro credentials, and in a survey that one of the speakers did, and I think this is really important. In the survey, they asked about like 100 companies, right? Like, don't quote me on the maths. I'm really bad with numbers, but like, so let's say they surveyed 100 companies. Like, they asked these companies between two candidates, one with a higher quality degree, i.e., like maybe they have a like second upper, and the other one has a second lower or third class. But the person with the less nice looking degree has micro credentials. People are like, employers are more likely to hire you because you have micro credentials, right? So yes, I agree that a law degree is enough, and that you marketing your skills is more than sufficient for you to land the interview and to get your foot in the door. Another thing that you want to do that I think is really important is to keep your skills updated, right? That's why on LinkedIn, you can like put in your skills on your like whatever bio section, but also that's why there are a lot of like workshops that are open for like just anyone to join. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for, but the long and short of it is you need to focus on upskilling yourself in order to remain attractive to your employers. So regardless of what you do, regardless of what your background is, as long as you are willing to learn and you can establish that you are, trainable and supportive and willing to learn, I think all of those things are the main things that employers look for in potential employees.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yan Cheng. And Mr. Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that I agree with both my fellow speakers. I think the thing that I noticed so far is like this experience from one of my peers. Usually there is a bit of an allowance, especially if there's either lacking in work experience or extracurriculars. There is some allowance, that especially for right after you fresh graduate. Let's say you graduate in July and then you're applying for your first job in August, September. They usually give you some leeway, maybe for like a few months to a year, because it's like you say, oh, okay, fresh grad, you're focused on school, it's fine. But the longer that goes on, especially if let's say you are you decide to take a break, which is fine, or like you decided you're in the midst of taking papers and everything, and then let's say if it didn't work out and you try to go back and apply later, then the employers may look at your CV and see, okay, nothing has happened in the meantime. There's not been any updates, and then they tend to get a bit wary on that. So I would say that a law degree itself, it's a good step, but usually it's usually recommended either you have either clubs and societies that you, even if you join as a member, you can either, so there's something to put there. I can either join a committee, you can either go for one-off events over the weekend. When I was a student, I used to go for Model UN. Those that usually take about a weekend. So there's something to put there. And then like sometimes in the summers or school breaks, you can just take an internship or like a job for like a few weeks to a month. There's like it mitigates the risk of you falling into the trap of either being too long without any updates on the CP, which tends to escalate over time, and which I think it happened after with COVID, with everything, either the hiring starts to freeze and it starts to get worse with that. But I would say that it is flexible, but also what you do with either your micro credentials or your experiences previously also helps, even though if it's a small internship, it helps. An example I can raise would be, I had an editorial or journalism internship with one of a startup, a legal tech startup. That experience actually leveraged me and got me into LexisNexis because of the editorial background. So, and that opened quite a bit of doors. And based on combined with that, that experience in LexisNexis, as well as my expertise in blockchains, that actually attracted Bursa Malaysia and got me into that in regulation. And with that experience, it also got me into my current role, which because I have capital markets knowledge. So it tends to build up and it can cascade and snowball. It gives you a career trajectory if you roughly have like things you can do, and there's a rough idea of where you want to get planned, that you can market towards a trajectory and goal that you're aiming towards. So I wouldn't say be super careful, but sometimes just you can have like a rough idea, especially if things that you're interested in. You can see there's a trend of things that you can do, and probably it might lead you somewhere that will make you happier and more successful down the road.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. Okay, so this sums up our general questions. So we will going to be asking personalized questions for each of the speakers, and we'll start with Ms. Ramisha again. So based on your LinkedIn profile, you've worked in different industries, from legal to education to business. So what inspired you to explore all these different industries?
So there are a lot of jobs and different career paths out there. There are a lot of opportunities, and I would say, like, whatever opportunity comes your way at the moment, just grab it. So the first thing that I started off with was education. I was an educator for about 8 years. I taught before I joined my degree, and while doing my degree, I was active in teaching as well. And so, after I graduated, I did part-time as a business office assistant. So I do have all these different career backgrounds, and, it's good to be curious. It's good to explore, to see what you like and what you're interested in. And not only that, it's good to have that kind of experience and those skills in that particular field as well. Because if things don't work out in law, or if you're not interested, you always have something to fall back on. But again, it's also about personal growth and professional growth as well. So I feel like that's pretty important to me. I feel like I need to keep building my skills and exposing myself to different fields. And it's good to explore, but it really depends on where your passion lies. So if you're still not sure where it lies, go ahead, explore as much as you want, but you have to have a reason to justify it, because employers do tend to ask, why are you changing fields so much? Why aren't you, staying in, one industry or one job? So, you have to really explain yourself and present well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Rumsha. All right, the next question is to Ms. Yanqing. So what made you step out of the legal industry and pursue public speaking training?
Okay. I think why I stepped out of the legal industry is because I realized that I loved reading law more than practicing law. So I'm a debater, right? Like, so I speak for a living, and I feel like I need to speak for a living. So for me, moving into like public speaking training, or like actually more specifically, I do corporate training. So I train adults in soft skills. So soft skills training felt like the natural next step for me. Purely because, like, I did do some training for a few debaters, like when I still was like active in the scene. So the bottom line is, I kind of just followed what I consistently wanted throughout my life. Like, I wanted a lot of things. I wanted to be a lot of things. But the one thing I wanted at the end of the day was to be able to speak for a living. And I think this was the ideal outcome.
Thank you. That's really fascinating. Okay, Mr. Jonathan, this question is for you. What led you to work as an in-house legal executive?
Actually, I think as I mentioned previously, since my early law school days, I think probably end of A levels to like the first few days of year one, I didn't want a life in private practice. I was always considering a life either in internal compliance or in in-house legal. I was interested in this because a life in in-house legal always has a lot of interactions with the other business units, in terms of either collaborations with them in order to proceed with a project, to ensure the completion, as well as to either minimize costs, maximize profits. There's a lot of either commercial back and forth and intertwining with the other business units and teamwork and collaboration, which I thought was very interesting because I wanted to be a part of an organization rather than in the sense of an independent contractor, which usually lawyers are, in the sense that they would be assigned to a case for litigation or for the transaction, and once they see it through, that's usually the end. That they will never see the company again unless a similar transaction comes up, or they will be held on retainer. So I like that the involvement would be seeing a project or a case from start to end from an internal perspective, and as well as seeing the different perspectives that different departments and business units would bring, as there's a lot of cross collaboration in the departments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jonathan. All right, this is again from Ms. Rimsha. Why be a paralegal instead of a lawyer? Is there any difference in terms of the workload or the work-life balance?
Okay, so I'm actually planning to do my bar later on this year. And being a paralegal is something, I want to gain experience in the legal world before I decide to practice or pursue my bar. And there are like stark differences between being a paralegal and, being an actual lawyer. So one of the things is that, sorry, can I have the question again?
No worries. So why did you choose paralegal first? And do you think there's a difference in the terms of the workload and the work-life balance? As opposed to being a
Compared to being a lawyer, or okay. Yeah, there's a really stark difference because as a lawyer you have to go to court, you have to go to hearings, you have to present yourself in front of the court, and all that stuff. So basically the stark difference is that a paralegal doesn't have to go to court. They just deal with paperwork and a lot of administrative legal work. As a paralegal, the things that I did, I was basically in-house. I didn't work at a legal firm that does litigation or anything. So we deal with clients and companies. So the things that I did was draft agreements and contracts. I did legal research here and there, allies with clients, and make sure, since I worked at a corporate secretarial company, we had to make sure that the documents were in line with the Companies Act 2016. So this was my day-to-day work as an in-house paralegal. So the workload it depends on the firm. Usually in firms which practice litigation and aren't in-house, there's usually a lot more workload, and it's mostly administrative work. So compared to being a lawyer, they go to court, to hearings and all that. So a paralegal doesn't have to do all that, basically.
Thank you, Ms. Rimsha. All right, back to Ms. Yen Cheng. So how did a law degree and your journey from law school after graduating from BAC, how did it assist you in your current job?
Okay, I'll answer it in two parts. So how did my law degree help me with my current job? I think law teaches you essentially two things. The first thing is to learn how to analyze things, right? So I think learning how to analyze things involves learning how to see things in the sum of its parts. So you can, I think law teaches you to break it down. I mean, we have those problem question essays, right, where you have to break down things. I think that teaches you like a lot of critical analysis that helps me with like my career a lot, because I don't just do like training, which does help with my syllabus development, but I also do event management. So it helps in the sense that you look at something and you're like, okay, I understand how to break it down. I understand how to like view things from the beginning to the end to determine what is missing, what I need to add on, things like that. I think another thing that, more importantly, law teaches you is to learn and process information quickly. I don't know, my example for this is jurisprudence, because like I really love jurisprudence. But like if you can understand and process jurisprudence, which is basically philosophy, I think it teaches you like that process of understanding like what jurisprudence really is, like teaches you how to like interpret information, even when that information is not something that is intuitive for you. So I think the ability to like learn in that way that the law degree teaches you, I think gears you up as a person to like, I just excel in whatever field you have. Because like no matter what job you go into, regardless if it's law or like English or whatever, right? You need to learn on the job. Like no matter what, you're never going to be in a job where you know A to Z whatever to do. And I think law as a degree and as a structured degree is able to give us those skills. How did BAC assist me? I think for the most part, BAC assisted me by giving me the opportunity to debate. I am a person that did my A levels like in a different law school. But I transferred to BAC for my degree because they had a debate club, because I debated in high school and I have an emotional attachment to it or whatever. But here's where soft skills, I think, is where I want to advocate for, right? I think the advocacy of soft skills is important because I credit a lot of my success to debating. I think what these extracurricular activities essentially do is they equip you with a lot of skills that you end up having to use on the job without you realizing it. Like if you're in a leadership position in your club, or like, any of the career club people who are organizing this, like all of these things are all skills that you're going to be able to use in whatever job you are in, because you're probably going to be able to have to do something similar to this at some point in your life. So yeah, I think those 3 ways.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Yan Cheng. That was really, really insightful. All right, so Mr. Jonathan, back to you. So how does your career differ from the work style of advocates and solicitors?
Okay, I'll give this in 2 parts because I've had experiences as a regulator and then now as an in-house legal. So as a regulator previously, with my previous role in BURSA, it was focused on drafting the various rules that public listed companies would have to follow, as well as providing regulatory advice to other business units internally. So it was a very compliance-based rule. It was basically to tell them, can we do this? And if we do it this way, is it compliant with the various legislations? In our case, the Capital Market Services Act. Do we need to contact a different regulator? Do we need to contact Bank Negara? How do we contact them? Are other exchanges doing this? How are they doing this, and stuff like that. So there was a lot of matters like that, as well as in order to research the answers and to get back to the business units in our meetings and to say, okay, this is how we do. That's on the advisory part. On the regulatory policy part, it would be to conduct various research, and then in order to get our concept paper out, and also to liaise with the external regulator, which should be Securities Commission, in order to get them to approve the rules as they've delegated the regulatory authority to us. And then after consulting with the various companies through a process, distilling down the comments and to get it down. So there's a lot of process and procedures there. That was for my role previously, and now it's very focused on 2 things. It was mainly on drafting as well as dealing with various internal stakeholders, whether our various operations units, the IT department, our internal and external COSACs, the finance department. Because sometimes there are various documents that they need from us. Sometimes there are various approvals that we need from them, either to approve payment, or there are various infrastructure or information that they would have, and those approval matrices. So it's a lot of internal stakeholder management rather than dealing with clients. So it's very back and forth, and there's a lot of cross collaboration. The main thing I would learn through both my roles would be, we legal people tend to call those who are not legally qualified, we call them as laymen, but there are some questions that we ask are probably just as stupid as the legal questions that they ask us. Like, I can imagine the number of times I have asked my IT department for various dumb questions, and I can imagine the gears in his head just turning. As well as, I think, as every law student knows, we are not good with numbers as well. I had to ask an intern to help me calculate various finance related matters because I didn't come from a finance background. So I'm like, it's very humbling to not be in a so legal environment. It's like there's a lot of cross collaboration and learning opportunities there in order to further the cost of the company, or in previous case, if a regulator, to be for the industry as a whole. So it's very fulfilling in the cross collaboration and different experiences that come about.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. All right, last round of questions from me, at least, for Ms. Rimsha. For students who are still deciding what they want to do with a law degree, what is your advice for them?
So my advice would be, while you're studying and pursuing your law degree, when you have free time, go and intern as much as you can. The first thing I would tell you is to go and intern at a law firm to know whether that is the career that you want to be doing in the future. And if you feel that, the law firm isn't a fit for you, go and intern anywhere else. You could be like a marketing intern, you could be like any intern you want, anything that you're interested in, just go and try it out. Because interns, the main role for them is to learn and to gain experience in the field that they've chosen. So I think go and intern, go and explore at this age and during this time. You can do that after your degree as well. A lot of people think that after you've gotten your degree, you have your life set, you have everything planned, but things don't always go as planned. Things can be sometimes disappointing. And one thing that I would say is that if you're in a place where you're not happy with what you're doing, you're not happy with where you're at, and the people there don't value you, know when to leave, don't stay. And life is too short to be doing a miserable job or something that you don't like. So know when to leave and just enjoy what you're doing. You can explore. There's even after your degree, it's fine. If you're feeling lost, it's completely normal. If you feel like, sometimes you stop and think, am I doing this right? Where am I headed? It's totally normal. A lot of graduates feel that way. So everyone's just exploring and just finding their way in this world. So it's okay to be lost. It's okay, if things don't go out as planned. It's okay to be disappointed at times, because there are a lot of times during your career after you graduate that, a lot of things don't go as planned. So just, keep on growing. Don't stay stagnant. Don't stay in one place. Keep on progressing. Keep on learning new things, and keep, learning new skills, and just do whatever makes you happy.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Rimsha. Right, Ms. Yan Chang, what skills do you think are crucial for students to develop, even though they don't know what to pursue?
What skills are crucial? Okay, I'll boil it down to 3 skills that I think a lot of employers and people in like the HR circles really like to talk about. The first is adaptability. I think employers and the job market has shifted because the access to education and tertiary education is something that has like increased over the years. So like having a degree doesn't automatically secure you a job anymore. I mean, it does, because there are a lot of jobs. But if you want to shine, right? If you want to go and do things, you want to go and like join, I don't know, apprenticeship programs that like banks and stuff have, right? I think 3 important skills is adaptability, prove that you can adapt to situations, prove your ability to be able to think on the fly, like problem solve on the fly. I think that's something that a lot of people cannot show and is desired by so many employers. The second is the skill of critical analysis. Like, form opinions for yourself and learn how to communicate those opinions, which is the third thing. Like, I think communication is very important. Like, your CV will get you through the door, but for them to like open the door for you and let you in, you do need to prove that like the only way to prove your worth and your skill is through your words, right? And through your actions to some extent. But until they hire you, you can't use your actions and you only have your words. This then means that regardless of how much anxiety or stage fright you might have, or like, you know, butterflies for an interview, one thing and one skill that I think is the bottom line for everyone, even if you don't know how to analyze critically, even if you're like not good at adapting, communication is the one skill that precedes everything else. The ability to, you know, explain your thoughts in a cohesive manner that people can understand you. The ability to persuade someone, the ability to be confident, the ability to establish yourself in a way that the people listening to you feel like they can trust you. That type of communication and being able to conquer that like interpersonal communication is, I think, the biggest thing that will put you up over a significant amount of people, because communication is really important in like the job sector, because a lot of people value your ability to kind of explain yourself. I think people always want to hear your thoughts, and your thoughts are the only thing that is going to differentiate you from the next person. The other person is going to be able to create the same spreadsheet, but the other person may not be able to explain it as well as you do. And I think communication is number one. Then number two is analysis. Number three is adaptability. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Miss. All right, Mr. Jonathan, this question is for you. How does your legal degree help you in your current occupation?
I guess my legal degree will probably be useful because I am working in an in-house legal role. So it's specific for legal graduates. For legal graduates, it's quite transferable because especially if we deal with a lot of contracts. We deal a lot of contracts in commercial matters. There's always elements such as breach clauses, force majeure clauses. What happens if there's a breach, and then if we have to do statutory research, it's always usually relating to breach regulations. There are things, especially in a commercial context, there are things that you do in law school that you don't do, especially if you go into commercial matter. Like the thing I would explain, which surprises my litigation friends, I haven't touched a case law in 3 years. If case law research is mainly litigation specific. So if those that are going into a corporate sector, case law research is very different. A lot of the times that we do would be statutory research, which is available on regulated websites. And a lot of these comes down to just the sheer art of Googling, just knowing where to find your information resources. Besides that would be condensing information into a presentable manner, explaining and communicating, such as what Yan Chen said, communicating and securing buy-in from different stakeholders, which I would think not really taught in law school, but especially because law tends to be, especially from what I remember was that unless you go out of your way, you can work completely on your own on an individual basis, which there are good and bad to it, but there is good and bad to it. But then there are sometimes it's like dealing with teams, as teamwork, especially with cross-functional teams, there is a lot of stakeholder management, and there's a lot of cross-disciplinary objectives and importance that are placed, which it comes into with there are more parties that come in, even within the same team, within the same department, before you leave the confines of your organization. And then once you leave the confines, you have to deal with external counsel, you have to deal with external corporate secretaries. There are many different factors that you have to think in. So communication also would be important in securing the buy-in, getting them to understand why do you need this, why do you need that, which I would think the formulation through your thinking process come from law school, getting it in a systematic manner does help. I would say those are the important things that really helped with my career coming from law.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. All right, now we will allow the participants to ask any questions in the chat box while we read out some of the questions they have submitted through the Google Forms when they signed up for this seminar. So the first question I have here is there a real difference regarding the job opportunities when you have just a law degree and a CLP or the bar? This is open to anyone who wants to answer.
I guess I'll answer. Because I took the bar, so I knew of some friends and classmates who left right after LLB. Some of them either got joint management trainees or they just went straight into different roles. I would say, as I said previously, the difference in what it isn't as important as one might think unless you're specifically a legal role. Like in that case, then it would be seen as more important because if you speak to any other graduates, they have no idea what a CLP even is. They do not know. And if you say the bar, it may not be known in like a lot of forms that even if you fill out in applying, there's no option for a CLP or a bar. The closest it will be considered would be a master's degree, but but considering it doesn't say a master's degree on the cert, it may get confusing to those who are not from a legal background. So I would say unless you're going for a specific legal role, which would be in-house legal or as like a counsel role, you don't have to because like there are other qualifications you can take, similar to how accounting and finance grads, they may choose to take an ACCA. There are either you can take MICSA, you can take B&M's SC papers, or you can just take AML qualifications, which depending on what kind of career and which organization you may choose to join.
All right, this is also directed to you, Mr. Jonathan, from a fellow participant. Would you say doing the bar or CLP right after doing a law degree, would you say it's a safe choice? Or think about it?
Okay. I mean, I personally find it fulfilling and interesting because there's a lot of, as I mentioned, there's a lot of close collaboration and dealing with commercial matters. So there are many facets to think about solely besides are we breaching the law and like it's not just a binary option of are we following the law and not. There's considerations relating to cost, delays, and how the continued operations of the company will be. I would say, and because it depends, because those that come from a corporate background, those that went to corporate law, they will be a bit more familiar with that. Those that may go coming from a litigation background, it'll be completely different to them. It's like it'll probably sound different because litigation is usually a more adversarial nature. Corporate, a lot of it is a lot of cross collaborations, is a lot of negotiating. What are you willing to give up in order to get this? It's like there's a lot of give and take.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. This is another open question to anyone who wants to answer. Sorry, give me a second. Is it a waste of time to consider CLP if you do not wish to practice, if you know right away that you don't want to practice?
I mean, I'll take it because I didn't take CLP. I think it is a waste of time. Like personally, I think that like just based on the whole discussion, right? There's zero application, there's zero credit for it. I think because the CLP takes like a significant amount of time from your life, you're better off channeling that amount of time, like gaining experience, because a lot of people appreciate experience.
All right, thank you, Miss. The next question I have here is, if I do not wish to become a barrister, solicitor, or advocate, would having the CLP help my career? And if so, how?
Okay, I can answer that question. So even if you do have the CLP or bar or any kind of practicing qualification, I think it's better to have it because even though even some in-house roles in companies, they require you to have at least 2 to 3 years experience and even a practicing certificate. So I think it's better to have one rather than like, not have one, especially in Malaysia. I think I've been through like a lot of job descriptions for in-house paralegals or legal executives, which require the candidate to have a practicing certificate, even though they're not practicing, and 2 to 3 years experience. So I think it's quite relevant.
I think, sorry, do you want to say something, Mr. Jonathan?
I think I would have a bit of a different opinion because I would say that depends on what you want to do because there are company secretaries that also have transitioned into legal departments and especially if you have a similar LLB qualification, then you choose to take the company secretarial qualification. And either those that actually come from a compliance background who have gone into a legal, which of course you need your baseline LLB. Like I think that's a given. But I think the thing is, if you pursue your CLP without doing your pupillage, you won't have your practicing qualification. So if you do your CLP, you need to do your pupillage. And after you do your pupillage, your CLP is forgotten. Nobody cares about the CLP after that, because you'll be looked at as your practicing certificate, your qualification after that. But so it comes as a 1 and 2 thing. But if you proceed with that path, once you get your practicing certificate, it is only valid for the time that you are in active practice of what. Because according to the LPA, you are not allowed to have a practicing certificate the moment you leave legal practice. So technically is the thing that we say equivalent experience. A lot of the job descriptions there, they say equivalent experience in an in-house legal role or a similar role, which it can be in a regulatory role, it can be in a compliance role, and because it depends on how the company structure their various departments, because some companies combine their compliance and legal teams, some combine their compliance with their risk teams, and some combine with and have a completely separate departments. So it really depends, but of course, some of these also can just proceed with you may get a taste of legal departments by going through management trainee programs, and once you get converted, you may get placed there or you may get placed in a different department. It just depends on what the company wants, but I would say it's possible, but you need to think on how to proceed and chart your path with that.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. If there's nothing else to add, I have another question. I'll direct this to Ms. Yan Cheng. Will law graduates put themselves at a disadvantage compared to others who have graduated from their particular field if they've decided to change a career path? Since you would have to learn everything from scratch again, right?
It's a difficult question to answer in that, like, it depends on the field you go into. Like, I mean, if you're a law graduate who wants to go into the IT field, like, of course, you're going to be at a disadvantage. But I think if you are a law graduate going into, like, I don't know, event management field against, like, hospitality kids, right? That comparison, I think, is a little bit more fair. And yes, you are at a little bit of a disadvantage. Like, yes, your degree doesn't include any information about this new field of work you have. But regardless of whether or not you studied the field you are working in, you're still gonna be learning on the job. Like, I have a friend who studied forensic science, and when she's interning, like, the things that she learns are so, like, unique from what she learned, even though she did like a 3-year degree in forensic science. So I think it just goes to show that the vast majority of careers that exist on a spectrum. For the most part, unless you're like at an MNC, you do get a taste of, like, different departments and the ability to do different projects and different things. And I think what a law degree uniquely gives you is that adaptability that I talked about. I think like law students, we have like 12 modules that are like extremely distinct from each other, that are things that we need to learn. I think that teaches us some adaptability that allows us to translate it into still being able to overcome the disadvantage even when you're studying in a new field.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Yanche. Ms. Rimsha, this question is directed to you. Since you've gone through so many different careers and you're now sitting for the bar in the foreseeable future, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Great question. If I'll be honest, I don't know myself. I do intend to practice, but I'm not sure whether it's something that I'll like or it's something that I might want to do long term. Since I am passionate about human rights, I would like to start an NGO or be more involved in women's rights, children's rights, or human rights in general. One of the things I really wanted to venture into is immigration law. So yeah, I think I'm still exploring the legal world. There are a lot of different fields and a lot of different things you can do. But ultimately, I see myself practicing for the next few years after my bar. And after that, I could probably go back into in-house or maybe just take up another managemental role in any kind of company. Or I do have an interest in IT. I feel like IT is the future, so it's good to have skills and knowledge within that area. And cybersecurity is something that I'd like to venture into in the future after maybe I'm done practicing.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rimsha. The next question I have is a two-part question for Mr. Jonathan. So, do you think your career as an in-house legal executive is fulfilling? Many people would say it's less strenuous than going to court, but for some reason, people would rather practice in court first. What are your opinions on this?
Okay, so the most fulfilling part about my role, I would say, it's the cross-department and cross-functional cooperation, which doesn't really exist in legal firms, because you only work with either lawyers within the same firm, or you deal with in-house counsel on the other side. So there's difference in perspective, but it's roughly in a similar role, just from a different vantage point. So I like that cross departmental collaboration. Both my current role as well as my previous roles, there is a lot of that. So I appreciate that, as well as like thinking wider beyond a legal perspective on how a company is trying to maximize its operations and trying to its profitability. There's a lot of different vantage points to think about, which would come naturally to either finance or business graduates, which do not come naturally to us. Like, they think in dollars and cents. For us, it just gives us a headache. So that's why there's a lot of different things, which I think is very interesting. As for going to court, so there's always been a bit of a difference on even in legal practice. There's always a bit of a difference between litigation counsel versus corporate counsel. Especially if you see an example, I would say would be those that go from Thomas Phillip, as opposed to those from like Wong and Partners. Wong and Partners is a very corporate firm, and like Thomas Phillip is a specialist litigation firm. The way they approach their practice is also completely different, and different people are attuned or prefer one over the other. Some people say that it has been said that those who do not go to court aren't real lawyers. Then that one is probably just a bit of a sense of there's some preference, elitism there, but it is what it is. It's like convincing the lawyers that draft your SPAs and go to land office. Those are lawyers as well. And so it depends on which you prefer. I personally have always preferred corporate, because there's always a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of give and take and negotiation, and because I personally do not see a life of an adversarial nature as being very fulfilling for my own personality, but it depends on an individual self.
All right, and the second part of that question was, as you mentioned, a master's degree. How favorable is the CLP in comparison to the masters with regards to working in-house?
Okay, so I think as I mentioned before, the CLP, because a CLP, it's only like a half of it, because it needs your pupillage in order to complete it. I personally would think that a master's on its own, and also as well as the bar itself, because it adds a qualification there that you can see that at least is that people would know. Think of it as, if you take an LLM, it's a more academic qualification. But so in the sense that, let's say if you take a master's in science and MSc in data analytics and stuff, anything like that, even though it's a very academic qualification, it depends on how you apply it. So if a CLP, if you have some years in practice, then there is a use to it. If an LLM, if it's a related LLM, let's say if you take it in an LLM in cybersecurity and data privacy, which, let's say, and then you're in a very data-driven and technology-driven company, there is a lot of use to that. So it depends on what the company requires, as well as what you see your own career to be. If you want to join an NGO, then it can be an LLM in international human rights, which is very useful because it is relevant to that organization. So personally, I would say a CLP on its own, it's not really what, because it's the years of practice, years, your PQE that makes it useful for you. So I would personally say, if you're certain of it, there are ways, either qualification or an LLM, you can work your way with it as well, especially if it's a very niche or developing area.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. This question is for Ms. Lee. Have you ever thought of pursuing a career in the legal industry? Is there any social pressure or influence for you to do so?
Okay, so I have, from the age of like 16 to 20, one like pictured me doing a law degree. Like I do think there was a lot of social pressure and influence. I think this exists for like a bunch of debaters. Like if you grow up debating in high school, everyone will tell you to be a lawyer because I don't know. But I genuinely did think that I was going to pursue law until I finished the first year of law school, and I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. For now, I'm really happy with what I'm doing. I do really, really enjoy corporate training. I think it's a very interesting field. But perhaps I would re-enter the legal field. But if I ever do, it will never be practicing law. I think it would be reading law. It would be, as a lecturer, as an educator. I think I like that a lot more.
Adding on to that, Ms. Lee, if someone were to want to go into lecturing, would they need their bar and CLP? And if not, what other skills would you recommend them developing?
I mean, I don't know the qualification for lecturing. I think for the most part, you have to have like a master's and above. And have like and the thing about lecturing is that you have to consistently put out research. For most universities, they require you to do that. So if you want to go into lecturing, definitely decide that this is what you want to be studying for the rest of your life. But if you want to go into education in general, right? Because I think that's my forte, like just general, how do you teach people things, like the education sector, how do you train people in things? I think one thing that's really important, I don't want to repeat myself, but like one thing that's really important is communication. Like at the end of the day, regardless of what you want to do in life, communication will always help you. Like whether it be creating networks for you or allowing you to like carry out your job, or cross collaborate in like maybe the corporate sector that like Jonathan talked a lot about. I think all of these things are things that will generally help you in your career. But I think one thing that I do think is important is to never get married to an idea or an ambition. Like I think for me, when I realized that I didn't want to pursue a legal career, it was really, really hard because like, I wanted to do it for like what, 4 years before I realized like, hey, I planned my life around this, but now I have to pivot. So I think allowing yourself the freedom and space to explore what you want, you do 1 year in one field and then you go try something else. I think if you spin it the right way, if you communicate the right way, I think regardless, like things will always turn in favor for you.
All right, we just got a question in the chat that I think relates to this. So would it be useful for law students who are thinking about lecturing to do the CLP or the bar? And do you think it's a promising career pathway?
So I don't want to give out advice in areas that I'm not sure of. So I definitely have no idea whether or not like the CLP or the bar will help you in lecturing, but I can definitely see how it would. Like I mean, if you've practiced before, that experience comes through in lecturing. If you know the bar and you know the CLP, that experience and that knowledge comes through when lecturing. So it depends on how you look at it. I think it is a promising career pathway. It's just really exhausting. Like lecturers are severely underpaid.
Thank you, Miss. And for you, Mr. Imsha, a similar question as well. Did you ever feel the pressure to stick to one career path when you ventured through these many careers? And if so, how did you navigate through it?
I don't think I necessarily felt pressure to stay on one path. During my teaching years, one of the main reasons I took up teaching was the opportunity was given to me, and I was like, you know what, I have to take it. I have to build my experience. I have to build my skills, and there are a lot of things that I learned with teaching that I do use in my career right now. Even though there's this a huge difference between being a teacher and a paralegal, there are a lot of soft skills that you learn, conflict management, problem solving, being independent, standing on your own, and all the soft skills such as being patient, communication, like how Miss Lee mentioned, communication is a big thing. And being confident and the way you present yourself, these are some things that I learned while teaching that I'm using in my career today. So I think any career that you venture into, you're gonna take some part of it with you, like all the skills and the experience that you had. You're gonna eventually take it into all the different careers that you do. So I don't think I've ever felt pressured staying in one place. I feel like it's good to explore, and as a person who's adventurous, who's curious, who likes to try new things, try different things, I think don't remain stagnant. If you're not happy at one place, go and try something else. And just do what you like, find your passion. And a lot of employers do tend to ask questions when you don't stick to one career path and you keep jumping around. So that's the only thing. You just have to know how to present yourself and how to answer that. So, and I think in today's day and age, there are employees who stay in a company for like decades, but in this day and age where there are so many careers, and a lot of youngsters, or our generation, focuses on progression and growth, and they do not tend to stay in one place. It's normal to stay in a company for maybe a year and not liking it and changing your career. So I think the trends are changing these days, and it all depends on your passion. And I would say just grow, get a lot of experience, and get a lot of relevant skills. Yeah.
Thank you, Miss. One more question kind of relating to that. It's that some people, it's a sad topic, where some people feel like they were forced into a law degree because of their parents. And after the law degree, they want to expand their horizons and go into different careers. Do you have any advice for what will be the first stepping stone to trying to figure out what they want after that? This is for Ms. Rimsha, I believe.
Oh, okay, sorry. So yeah, it's totally understandable being pressured into doing a law degree, with coming from an Asian background, you either have to be a doctor or a lawyer, or all these professional career as engineers. So I think that, you know, you got to listen to yourself. You got to listen to your calling, you know, what you feel like you want to do. And like I said, at the moment, while you're still studying and you still have time to, you know, do internships, go and do it, you know. If you think marketing is your thing, go and be a marketing intern. If you think, you know, you want to still see what the legal world is like, go and, you know, intern at legal firms. So just try and explore as much as you can at the moment and see what you want to do. And it's not that lawyers are earning like lots of money unless you are a partner or have your own firm. I think in the legal field, it's very competitive. It takes a long time to get to a really good place, you know, with a really good income and, you know, financial stability. And it takes years of hard work and struggle. So I think that you should listen to your true calling, see what you like to do, and just explore. Even as a graduate, you know, a lot of us are still trying to figure out what we want to do. So it's completely normal. Just, you know, try different things. And if you ever want any advice or anyone to talk to, you can always just message me on LinkedIn. Yeah, so.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rimsha. I think that's it for questions for today. Before we end the session, I would like to ask all the speakers to share any advice to us students on matters regarding picking a career path after law school. Can we start with Ms. Lee?
Okay. Okay. My biggest advice is to enjoy it while it lasts, because like, I'm not gonna lie, like the working life is 9 to 5, actually more than 5, every single day. You get the weekends off, but you're too tired to do anything. Like, legitimately, you don't have to have anything figured out right now. Like, take a month or 2 off after you graduate to figure it out. Like, you don't have to figure it out right now. You don't have to be tied to anything right now. You don't have to go looking for jobs while you're still studying. I think enjoying it and living in the moment and doing what you want to do and trying out the things you want to try, this is your prime time to do it. And I think you should capitalize on this time to try all of the things you've ever wanted to try.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. How about you, Mr. Jonathan?
I guess it would be two main takeaways from my end. I would say the first thing would be, even how I would advise some of my peers and everything, especially if they're unsure on what the right choice would be, start off on figuring out what you don't want to do, what you don't want and you don't like. And just once you figure that out, eliminate those, and then you can start trying the things that you think, oh, this could be something you want to do or something you might be interested in, because it doesn't seem so overwhelming with unlimited options. There are now some things have already been eliminated. So that would be just figure out what you don't want to do, what you can't do, what you really have no passion for, and just put it one side and eliminate. Don't even consider it. And the second thing is peer pressure. I would say always be try not to be influenced by it. I think we are all aware how dangerous it is. But at the end of the day, it's your life to live. And so, especially even if all your friends have decided a life in practice is for them, it doesn't have to be the same for you, because they may feel that's their path to take, but it may not be your path to take. Because in the end of the day, some of them have big dreams of becoming the big partner of a big firm to set up their own practice, but that may not be your dreams. And it's the same thing with life. And you become 30, 35, if you see, oh, this person has a big car or a very high paying job, but that may not be what you want and may not be something that you're happy about, because you're not passionate about that personally. And if it doesn't make you happy, is it really worth doing? So I would say at the end of the day, it's hard not to be influenced by it, but eventually you have to at least try and drown it out and filter what it is. And always remember that you are influenced by the 5 people that are closest to you. So pick the people that influence you correctly, because it does shape your outlook and your viewpoints on a lot of things.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. And Ms. Michelle, do you have any advice to give us?
Carrying on from what Mr. Jonathan mentioned just now, I think, in this day and age with LinkedIn and a lot of other professional sites, we tend to scroll and see other people and see their achievements. And sometimes we start comparing ourselves to others, and sometimes we think, oh my God, I want that. Oh my God, this person is doing so well, I should go after that. But I think comparison kills. And, you could be doing what that person is doing and you're not going to be. So I think it's never good to compare yourself with others, and please don't do that. So everyone has their own calling. You're right now where you're at, that's where you're supposed to be, and if you're not happy with that, then go and explore, try and find out what you want, and don't do something because someone else is doing it. Another thing that I would mention, I think I'll just be repeating what I said before. It's okay to feel lost. It's okay to stop and ask yourself, what am I doing? It's completely normal while you're doing your degree and even after your degree. You don't have to have everything figured out. And but one thing that I would say is, if you're not happy with what you're doing or where you're working, know when to leave, because life is too short, doing a job that you don't want. So go out and explore. One thing that I would say is, don't remain stagnant, keep on progressing, learn as many skills as you can, get as much experience as you can in different industries. And I think, all of that really adds to your value in your career. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Just this last piece of advice we would like to gain from you guys. People who are considering, venturing out from other careers with their law degree, they might be worried that they need to work while they're studying, like getting internships or, doing courses. What are your thoughts on working while studying, especially under the pressure of a law degree? Ms. Lee, could you go first?
So I am going to be talking about people who have the privilege of not having to work, like implying that this is a choice, because I think we have to acknowledge that there are people who just have to, and that sucks, and it's hard. But I think you need to reflect, take a moment, take a step back, and make a decision whether or not you can handle it. One of my juniors interned at the company that I'm working at, and when their degree started, they couldn't handle the pressure. Understandably so. I think a law degree is pretty demanding. If you have co-curriculars on the side, if you're doing I don't know, if you're learning additional things on the side, it's very demanding. I think the law degree in and of itself is already demanding. So different people have different appetites for stress and for work. So don't feel pressured to go out of your way to intern and work just because you think that is your only way to get employment in the future. There is always a way out, but one thing you shouldn't jeopardize is your physical and mental health. So actually make a decision based on your capacity as an individual, whether or not you can do it, before you decide to do it. I don't think it's the most important thing of in the world. It's not an end all be all to work while studying. Maybe you just want to enjoy it, and then just go with the flow.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. How about you, Mr. Jonathan?
I would say that having the privilege of working separately from my legal education, usually because I only intern in the summers for the most part, the main thing I would say is, especially if you're interested, or if you have the mental capacity or the emotional capacity to do it, actually would be a good opportunity to reach out and be willing to ask for help. Okay, even if either your lecturers, or even if you just ask a close few classmates to it, sometimes they're just willing to help share your notes. I personally believe that law school is the classic good time to network and everything, but you don't have to network in the sense of, oh, where are you from, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just being willing to ask for help. And for the most part, I believe that most people are willing to help, because I believe that it's just a small thing. Sometimes just passing somebody's notes, or just to inform them that this class is happening at this time, or there's an additional catch-up session or a tutorial in this. So this would be a good opportunity to run. And having that sense of even just a support system, it really helps you like even balance it, balance the responsibilities and commitments coming from going to school and working, because there's a bit of a mental load off. So if you can find someone and people that you can trust, it's invaluable. But of course, if you haven't, then it is more difficult, not impossible. But it's always just, you need to pick your battles, and you need to be able to balance your time and management as well. There's a lot of things to consider.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jonathan. And Ms. Rimsha, would you like to continue on that?
Sure. So I actually taught part-time and studied part-time as well. So I was one of the people who didn't have the privilege to just study. So I did balance working and studying. I admit it's really tiring. It does take a toll on your mental health. And there would be times where I would just neglect my studies and then just cram last minute. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend working while studying. If you're studying, I would recommend that you enjoy these years, focus on studying, because you're going to be working for the rest of your life. So I think these are crucial years where you can just focus on studying, having fun, have a social life, go out, hang out with your friends, and do extracurricular activities, be part of NGOs, be part of clubs, mooting, debating. But working, I would say that do it when you have free time, as in vacation or holidays. I would suggest, if you do want to work and intern or gain experience into the working world, do it when you're free. Other than that, just focus on your studies and having fun, because you're not going to get these years back. After uni, you're just going to be working. So yeah, just have fun and focus on your studies, and only take job opportunities or internships if you have the privilege to do so. Do it when you're free, or you're not studying during break. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Rimsha, and thank you to all our speakers for speaking today and sharing such incredible pearls of wisdom with all of us. I for one am very enlightened of my various options if I choose not to do my bar, and I hope everyone else feels the same. So with that, we conclude our event. For all our participants, thank you so much for coming by. You can follow us on our socials. On Facebook, we are Brickfields Asia College Career Club, and everywhere else, literally everywhere else, we are BAC Career Club. And here you can find out more information of our upcoming events and anything else that we might find interesting. All right, thank you again, everyone. Have a great night. Stay safe, and bye.